Okay, people in the back, can you hear me with the microphone? Anybody have any problems? I'll try to speak up a little bit. Good news is I don't have any view graphs. Bad news is I don't have any view graphs, so you're going to have to listen to me as I make my speech. My name is Jeff Fitzsimmons. My background is in engineering and space systems engineering in particular, and my education is in that. So, of course, what I'm going to talk to you today is about philosophy. Definition of philosophy, you have many different kinds of philosophy. You have the philosophy of the mind, you have the philosophy of consciousness, you have philosophy of science, you have philosophy of religion, many different kinds of philosophies. What we don't have is a philosophy of space, or at least we're just beginning to develop a philosophy of space. So my invitation to you out there in the audience today is, if there are any professional philosophers out there or students who want to major in philosophy, this is a wide open field for you, and we need you. We need people that can develop an overarching philosophy of space. At least that's, in my opinion, we need it. Some people are doing good work in that area. Frank White, if anybody's ever read The Overview Effect, his book is really good. There is a journal of space philosophy on the internet. I think Bob Crone runs that. That's pretty good. The transhumanist community jumps into some philosophy in space, and I'll talk about that a little bit. But going back to the early or late 19th century and early 20th century, the first people to develop kind of an overarching space philosophy were the Russian communists. Cosmism, not to be confused with the Russian communists. I don't know if anybody's ever heard of Cosmism before, but you'll recognize at least one name that I have here. Okay, what is philosophy? Philosophy is, according to Stephen Ashworth, who's also doing good work in developing a space philosophy. He has an excellent article in the Journal of British Interplanetary Society, and I'll reference that a little bit later on. The most general causes and principles of things and ideas, systems and principles for the conduct of life. And it's broken down into basically 4 different areas. Metaphysics, or what is reality. Epistemology is how do we know what we know. Ethics, how do we live a good life? What is a good life? And meaning and purpose. And I'll concentrate mainly on the last category of meaning and purpose. Okay, Russian Cosmism, what I call Cosmism 1.0. According to Giulio Prisco, on his website, the definition is a Russian scientific, philosophical, and spiritual movement of the late 19th and early 20th centuries focused on our place in the universe, technological immortality, resurrection of the dead, colonizing of space, and the perfection of the human race. Wow, sounds like a big, ambitious schedule. But we need something that's ambitious. We need something that's optimistic. And to give you an example of something that's not quite as optimistic, here's a quote from Bertrand Russell, another philosopher, in his famous essay, A Free Man's Worship, in which he concluded that, quote, all the labors of the ages, all the devotion, all the inspiration, all the noonday brightness of human genius are destined to extinction in the vast death of the solar system, and the whole temple of man's achievement must inevitably be buried beneath the debris of a universe in ruins. Wilhelm Ostwald also observed that, quote, in the longest run, the sum of all human endeavor has no recognizable significance. So that's why we need a philosophy of space, and that's why we're going to talk a little bit about cosmism. Okay, like I said, the main themes of cosmist thought given by Gerald Young, who's also written a very nice book on the Russian cosmists, and I highly recommend it if you want to take a look at it, is 1, active human role in human and cosmic evolution. 2, practical immortality. 3, resurrection of the dead. 4, colonization of the entire cosmos. And 5, emergence of a new humanity or a new noosphere. And there are 3, he goes into detail of a bunch of different personalities, but there are 3 main personalities that he focuses on. One is Nikolai Fedorov. He was born in 1829, died in 1903, and his was more of a religious cosmism as opposed to a scientific cosmism. And it's a blend of Christianity and technology. He was a bit of a mystic, bit of a philosopher, an educator, and his main area was what he called the common task. And he thought the common task of humanity was resurrecting the dead in a technological sense, immortality, the perfection of human beings, all the cosmos themes. And of course, how are you going to get these people? Where are you going to put them? You have to colonize the cosmos. You have to move out and go spread out to the universe. Somebody who was a student, had a more scientific bent, was a name I hope everybody will recognize, and that's Konstantin Tsiolkovsky. And he was born in 1857, died in 1935, and of course, he's the rocket theorist who derived and pioneered the rocket equation that we're all familiar with. He was a school teacher and a philosopher, and like I said, he was a student of Fedorov. He had many conversations with Fedorov. He has some mysticism, but his field of study was more concentrated in mathematics and astronautics. In fact, he pretty much invented the field of astronautics. And the concepts of spaceflight that he's proposed, some of his ideas are still being used today. Low Earth orbit space stations, mining of the asteroids, using the solar pressure to provide propulsion. A whole bunch of ideas that we're still exploring today. The third category was demonstrated by a man named Vladimir Vernadsky. You may recognize his name. He was born in 1863 and died in 1945. And he was one of the first ecologists. He studied the system of nature and system of Earth. And he proposed that the Earth moves from a geosphere to a biosphere. He was one of the first people to use that term, to what he called the noosphere. And the biosphere was that life is an important ingredient of the Earth, not just the Earth itself, and that the noosphere, nuo means mental or intelligence. Intelligence plays a role in the future of the Earth. Like I said, he was an ecologist, he was a scientist, he was a progressive, he believed in natural evolution. He also believed that the future is created by mankind itself and that there's transformation going on. And it would be remiss of me to mention, since I mentioned the noosphere, not to mention somebody who's not a cosmist, but since we're at the Catholic University here today, Teilhard de Chardin, in his book The Phenomenon of Man, also mentioned noosphere, also had kind of cosmist ideas in his omega point theory, where we kind of help get to a path that leads to human perfection and to God. Although he was a Christian, Fedorov also was a Christian, but they were unorthodox Christians. They were probably closer to an idea of process theology than conventional Orthodox Christianity, as you might think today. Okay. The other area that I want to define is meaning of life. There are, of course, many different meanings of the word meaning, and the one I want to concentrate on is what's the meaning of life? Well, meaning is something that is created by intelligence. It's invented by human beings or people or agents with intelligence. It's not imposed from above. You can't really find it out there in the universe. It's something that we invent along the way. That doesn't mean it's any less objective. You can have types of objective meaning. It just means that it's not imposed from some entity that's above us, because then you would be doing their meaning and you wouldn't be doing your own meaning. It's also, I consider it to be an emergent property. Emergent property, as you may know, is something where the whole is greater than the sum of its parts. Emergent properties are things like ant colonies or economies or types of different water systems where you have to have interaction among the parts and you get higher order properties that you necessarily can't derive from the parts. And this is what I think meaning is. Since we human beings are meaning makers and consciousness is an emergent property, then meaning comes on top of consciousness. And so I consider it to be an emergent property. There are three different kinds of meaning. One is personal meaning, and this is the type of meaning that's private, it's personal, it's more subjective, it's unique to you. can be used for self-improvement. It's like learning a new language, improving your golf game, improving your talents, your skills that you have. The second is public or group meetings. And this is the idea of, I want to make a difference in the world. When you ask a person, well, what do you want to do with your life? Well, I don't know, but I want to make a difference in the world. You want to make the world a better place. Increase the standard of life. Increase the quality of life for all. Increase the well-being of all sentient creatures. It's more objective, and even though it's more abstract in the sense that you're working for causes greater than yourself, something like freedom or justice or liberty, so it's more abstract, but in some ways it's more measurable. You can look at things like the standard of living and quality of life and even happiness surveys to get an idea, whereas personal meaning is more concrete, but sometimes it's hard to get a measure on the improvement of your language skills or the improvement of your talents and abilities. Although you can also get that objective measurements for those. But the public group meeting, you want to enhance the happiness of all agents. There's a third area of meeting that needs a lot of work, and I think it's important, and that's what I call cosmic meaning. And here we're talking about the cosmos, the universe as a whole. Is there an actualization of the cosmos? Is there something that I call the self-actualization of the cosmos? Can we maximize the spread of intelligence and life to all parts of the galaxy and universe as far as it's possible to do that? Bring life and intelligence to a lifeless universe. Maximize happiness for all agents, whether they be humans or transhumans or post-humans or even intelligent extraterrestrials. The goal here would be to maximize happiness to all parts of the cosmos, to bring the cosmos to life, if you will. Okay, I said in my abstract I'd talk about justification. How do you justify meaning, especially in an objective sense? I think the way you do this is to start with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. We've all seen the pyramid. Start with the needs, wants, and desires from a physical aspect all the way to an actualization aspect. This is based on evolution or human nature. From that, you can move to the sense that we are both rational animals and social animals. If we were not social animals, then we wouldn't need ethics. If we're not rational animals, we wouldn't need philosophy. So that moves us to the third category, what I call the universal, public, transcendent, and objective morals and meanings. I say transcendent in the terms of not something supernatural, but something that transcends cultures, transcends time, transcends places, and is kind of universal to the human experience. And Maslow's hierarchy of needs kind of encapsulates that. The highest goal, the greatest goal, is the top of the pyramid, the self-actualization pyramid. Is also important to Aristotle, what he called eudaimonia, which is good spirit or good demon, literally, and that means happiness. Happiness broadly defined, not happiness as something that, well, today I'm experiencing a transient joy or a particular pleasure, although joy and pleasure is important. But I mean fulfillment, a lifelong fulfillment, achievement, accomplishment. That's what I mean by happiness. And since the happiness is greatest good, and we want to move into cosmic meaning, then optimize the self-actualization of the cosmos would be kind of the next step. And the way you do that is you spread intelligence throughout the universe. Okay. You can also start with a humanist aspect of what matters, and I'll get into that just a little bit here. In a good article in the Humanist magazine, Andy Norman describes what he calls the big picture mattering map. It is what really matters. And he says, on what is, we are part of the natural order, one composed of matter, governed by laws, but apparently indifferent to our fate. In other words, we're natural beings. Our origins, all life on this planet evolved from a common ancestor. We're all quite literally kin. The evolved psyche, our basic needs, desires, and interests, again reflecting Maslow, are those that helped our ancestors survive. Their fulfillment matters to us, but it not seems to the universe. The will to matter. Among our most basic needs is the need to matter. We need to understand our lives as important, as making a difference. That's moving up the pyramid a little bit. The meaning of life is the secret to happiness is to find something that matters more than you do and devote your life to it. What really matters? The well-being of sentient creatures is the sole root of real mattering. It matters inherently. Other things matter only by enhancing or detracting from it. And life is short, dare to care. Helping sentient creatures flourish is project enough to infuse life with meaning. Okay, that's kind of a quick and dirty, at least one person's idea of what humanist values might be. To move into the realm of transhumanist values, we're moving toward Cosmism 2.0 is where I'm trying to get you here. So the next step might be transhumanist principles or transhumanist values. And here's what Max Moore says. He lists 7 of them. I'll go through them very quickly. Perpetual progress. 2, self-transformation. 3, practical optimism. 4, intelligent technology. 5, open society. 6, self-direction. And 7, rational thinking. And just for his perpetual progress statement, seeking more intelligence, wisdom, and effectiveness, an indefinite lifespan, and the removal of political, cultural, biological, and psychological limits to self-actualization and self-realization, perpetually overcoming constraints on our progress and possibilities, expanding into the universe and advancing without end. So we see some movement toward the cosmist ideas of the old Russians. And finally, the new Cosmism, and I point you toward a Cosmist Manifesto, a book written by Ben Goertzel. You may know Ben, he's in the transhumanist movement. Or Giulio Prisco used to have a website called the Order of Cosmic Engineers. I love the name of that website. I think it's defunct now. I don't think he uses it anymore. I think he's moved on to something called the Turing Church, which is less impressive to me. But I love that. So I'm taking these 10 new Cosmism principles, Cosmism 2.0 principles from his website and from Ben Goertzel's book. And I'll go through them rapidly because I'm running out of time. Okay, humans will merge with technology to a rapidly increasing extent. 2, we will develop sentient artificial intelligence and mind uploading with indefinite lifespan. So you can see the immortality kind of streak going here. 3, we will spread to the stars and roam the universe. That's important to us as the Mars Society. And I'll tell you about that in a minute. 4, we will develop virtual worlds able to support sentience. 5, we will develop space-time engineering. 6, by scientific means, most of the promises of religion will be met. Resurrect the dead by, quote-unquote, copying them to the future. And he goes on to describe that a little bit. I'll let you explore that a little bit further. But it's a very interesting concept. It's not real resurrection. It's more like a virtual resurrection. 7, intelligent life will become the main factor in the evolution of the cosmos. 8, radical technological advances will reduce material scarcity. 9, new ethical systems will emerge, the emergence idea. 10, these changes will fundamentally improve the experience of humans and our successors to ultimate happiness. And he uses the word will near it, not as something that is inevitable, but as something that we intend to do, we should intend to do. And they make it specific that how it differs from the old Russian cosmism is that Russian cosmism got into a little bit of mysticism and supernaturalism, and they try to remove all that in the new cosmism. They definitely say it's not a religion, it's more of a philosophy and a worldview. They remove elements of superstition or supernaturalism or mysticism or faith-based methodology and wishful thinking. So they move toward more of a 21st century idea using concepts of philosophical naturalism on top of it. There is a nice piece by, like I said, Stephen Ashworth, who developed what he called the philosophy of the starship, and he hits on a lot of the same themes. His cosmology, the heavens are part of man's world versus the heavens are beyond our reach, a little bit of what Kent was saying in his earlier lecture. The value system, virtue consists in improving our well-being in the material world through material growth and progress, versus values in preparation for an afterlife in a spiritual heaven. That's a little bit different than what Kent was saying. Technology, development of new technologies is good. It is virtuous for the natural order of life to be improved on by human ingenuity, versus development of new technologies is bad. Nature knows best. So you see that today with the reluctance of a lot of people for GMO foods or to build new power plants. And if we go to Mars and try to establish a colony on Mars, you might get some resistance from these type of people. Source of moral values. Moral values are determined through democratic and evolutionary means versus imposed by a lawgiver superior to mankind and therefore of divine origin. So it's Ashworth's idea here is that our moral values come from us. They're not ordained from above. The nature of change. Human society is progressive. The future will be wealthier, more peaceful, more pleasant to live in than the present, with greater capabilities and greater freedom versus a human society that is static, cyclical, and retrogressive. So I invite you to take a look at his article in the Journal of British Interplanetary Society, if you get that. And he has a lot of good ideas that are very similar to what the Russian cosmos had and what the new cosmism had, and what we can take as at least the beginnings of philosophy of space. Okay, what is the role that we should have here to establish a colony on Mars? How does this play into cosmism? How does cosmism help us to establish a colony on Mars? Well, there are 4 specific roles I think a Mars colony would help. 1, to establish a solar system economy. If we're going to go to the stars, and Stephen Nashworth argues this really well in his paper, if we're going to go to the stars, we need a very robust economy that keeps on growing. Something that's thriving, that's multifaceted, that we move from a Kardashev Type 1 civilization to a Kardashev Type 2 civilization. And Mars can be a central role in that solar system economy. 2, increase the resources. We can double the land space by having a colony on Mars. We can double the water. We just saw that there's plenty of water on Mars in very shallow depths, it turns out. We can increase food, materials, energy. A place for a whole new branch of human civilization, as we all know. Trade with the rest of the solar system, part of that solar system economy. It's a proximity to the main belt asteroids. So you have a triangle economy. You have the Earth-Moon system, you would have the Mars area, and you have the main belt asteroids. And since Mars is proximity to the main belt asteroids, and their gravity level is closer to that than maybe to the Earth, you could have a place for food and shelter for people working in the main belt asteroids. Also, you have innovations not possible on Earth, such as terraforming the planet. You can do terraforming experiments on Mars that you might not be able to do on the Earth. You can provide emergent properties. You see emergent properties developing from trade between 2 very different civilizations, very different organizations. So that's an important step. And 4, experience with building other planets. If we can terraform Mars or make Mars habitable, then that doubles the number of exoplanets that we see in the galaxy that may be of use if we go into interstellar space. We don't have to just look for Earth-like planets. Now we can look for Mars-like planets. We don't have to look for something that's in the middle of the habitable zone. We can look at the stretches of the habitable zone. So that kind of doubles our ability to live on other planets. Terraforming experiments, we can take those to other planets, what we learn on Mars, once we move out into the interstellar void, if we can move into that. And you can experiment with quote-unquote dangerous technologies because you might be able to move them to parts of Mars that are uninhabited. And so you can experiment with things like synthetic life forms, with self-replicating robots, with artificial superintelligence and androids. And that's pretty much all I had to say. I'm just going to finish with one quote from Stephen's work. And And that is that, that he thinks it's very important to develop a philosophy of space, a starship philosophy. But the starship philosophy is unique in that it projects galactic scale expansion for the human species and its descendants for a period of millions of years to come, while resting on a Western foundation of the meaning of history in terms of growth and progress, what Kent talked about. It introduces scientifically derived ideas about the place of intelligence in both terrestrial nature and the astronomical universe. And it anticipates future technologies rather than merely accepting that those that have occurred to date. It is a philosophy which could only have arisen in an expansive industrial age. Okay, that's pretty much all I want to say. A lot of information there. I have a couple of minutes for questions. Go ahead. Right. Yeah, I didn't. I didn't write that. Yeah, I can provide it to the Mars Society people, or you can get it after the time. So, go ahead.
Are you familiar with Professor Cosmism? He's one of the cosmologists that falls into this group. He just died. He wrote over 50 papers on cosmology and things that you just described.
What was his name again?
Cosmism. They don't Cosmism.
Yeah. No, I haven't.
Academy of Science. I just republished his book. Translated into English.
Oh, great. Oh, great. Yeah. No, I'd like to see that. Yeah. Go ahead. Next 40 years. Yeah. I'm not sure when we'd be able to get to Mars, but I think we have to continue to. That's one of the reasons why I think we need to develop a philosophy of space. When things are going bad, when things look like they're terrible, we have to have an overarching idea to say, I'm going to stick with it. Even though the next president may not embrace a colony on Mars, which is, I think, what needs to happen for us to go, we still have to have something that says, I'm going to stick with it. This is important to me and the future of human beings. Well, we're going to send people that can, MacGyvers. We're going to have to send people that can engineer problems. Like in the movie The Martian, engineers are going to have to. So, janitors are very resourceful people, so don't rule them out. Don't rule them out. Okay, I think we're all done. Thank you very much.